Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 3 of my recommendations for characters from The Residence, a TV show on Netflix about a murder that happens in the White House during a state dinner. Love this TV show. This is our part 3 and our first part and second part, which will be linked in the cards above. We talked about the investigators and the first family, and now in our final part, we're talking about the people who actually run the White House, the chief usher, and the people who work there and make sure that everything runs smoothly. So to dive in, we'll start with the new chief usher, Jasmine Haney. She's the woman who has to step into AB's shoes after he's killed and basically run the place during a time of crisis. And for her, I wanted to recommend The Blighted Stars by Megan E. O'Keefe. And the reason I want to recommend this one for her is that Jasmine's somebody who's very ambitious. She wants to step into that role. She's supposed to step into that role, and her ambitions get kind of frustrated right at the start of the show, and it's really frustrating for her because of this sense that her achievements and her accomplishments, her abilities are being questioned by AB and by others in the White House, even though she showed up, she's put the work in, she knows she's capable, but she feels like the people around her don't really respect that, or at the very least that the events that have occurred have kind of suggested that her abilities are not being respected. And so I wanted to recommend this to her because I think that she would find some parallels between herself and Tarquin, one of our two main characters. Tarquin is the son of the current leader of this intergalactic corporation, and he is clearly very well loved. He has this really close relationship with his father in a lot of ways, but he also has this feeling that his father doesn't necessarily think he's capable, and Tarquin has been off at university. He's done his PhD. He's very intelligent, he's a very capable man, but he feels like his desire to be involved in the family business is kind of pushed aside. He's treated as the prized son who can't be put in harm's way. He feels like his ambitions and his interest in the family business are just overlooked. And so he goes on this mission at the beginning of this story where he wants to be helpful to the family business. He wants to prove that he can be a part of this system that they're running. But he ends up, as a result of the events of this book, where they get kind of stranded on this planet, he ends up having to step into the role of leader in a time of crisis and find his way through that, figure out who he is as a leader, and try to figure out is he more like his father, or is there another path forward? So I feel like Jasmine would just find some parallels between herself and Tarquin and this suddenly having to take on a role, even if you felt like you were ready for it, taking on a role in a time of crisis and having to convince people that you can lead, that you are a capable person, and that they should trust you. And I think that would be satisfying for her to see how this plays out for Tarquin. Next, I want to talk about Rolly Bridgewater. He's one of the butlers, and he is one of the more competent characters. He's very quiet, he's kind of understated, he's very good at what he does, and it's quite clear all the time that he's just kind of a little tired of everyone's nonsense. He's frustrated with the president and his family, but it doesn't stop him from doing his job. And he's frustrated with his coworkers, but that doesn't stop him from doing his job. He's just extremely competent, very calm, very level-headed, and he just seems like he's sort of the glue that helps keep some of these coworker groups together. And I think that he would really enjoy A Master of Gin by P. Djeli Clark, just because I think he would really like Detective Fatma, who's our main character. She is a very competent detective, she's very observant, and she has to deal with everyone's nonsense too, but she never lets that get in the way of her doing her job. She's not going to let people prevent her from doing what she does, and what she does so well, which is solving these mysteries, bringing closure to people who have been harmed. And I just think he would really like Detective Fatma, because I really like her. She's fantastic, and I think he would have a good time reading this one. The next two characters I actually want to talk about together. These are Marvella and Didier Gotard. They are respectively the chef and the pastry chef, and they're very much like foils of each other. They're very similar, but they're also constantly at odds with each other. Both of them are extremely talented. Marvella is very much like an experimental chef. She's really about creativity and trying something new. And Didier is kind of on the other side. He's all about the precision. He's spent years perfecting his craft, and he feels very strongly about doing as close to perfect on every job as he can. And they both feel frustrated by the other people in the White House. They have differing philosophies, so they're constantly at each other's throats, but they both feel like they've been let down by the people around them because they're work is being impacted in different ways. For Didier, he feels very underappreciated, that he's put all this work in. They brought him from, he's like working in a Swiss hotel, like a 5-star Swiss hotel, prior to working in the White House, and they brought him here, and then he's being asked to make these just like very basic things, and he's kind of being stifled. And when he does do something that's really incredible, he feels like it's not appreciated. He doesn't get the recognition that he wishes he would get for that work. And then Marvella feels like her creativity is being stifled, that she's being forced to serve these like really boring traditional meals that just aren't her bread and butter. It's not what she wants to be doing, and it's not where she really excels. So they have this strong difference because of their differing philosophies to food, but they're also in very much the same boat where they feel underappreciated by the people around them, and they feel like they're just constantly being like pushed down into smaller and smaller boxes to fit the expectations of others and the sort of like traditional ideas that are coming from some of the other characters. So for them, I wanted to recommend The Fathers by Alan Tate, and this is one that I don't know that I would recommend generally, but the reason I want to recommend this is because this is very much about two men, who have wildly different ideas about what the world should be. You have one who sort of represents like the old guard. He is tradition, he is like family values personified. And then you have the new guy who's kind of like capitalism and free market stuff. Like, his whole thing is this new philosophy of money and of ownership, and he's kind of a loose cannon in the story. But the two of them are constantly butting heads, and ultimately they're working towards similar goals. They're both trying to, like, hold on to their families, but they go about it in very different ways, and for both of them, it kind of falls apart in the end, that they both are, like, too extreme, and the story is actually told from the perspective of a young boy who, the kind of old guard guy is his father, and the loose cannon fellow is his brother-in-law, and so he's seeing both of them in their kind of interactions with each other as he's growing up, and all of this is right before the Civil War. So you also have this, like, layer of these two men representing the social tensions that were happening during this time. That being said, I do want to say that this is a book I read for a class on Southern Gothic literature and whether that like really exists as a category, if you can think of like Southern Gothic as a cohesive thing, or if it's sort of a fantastical idea. And that means that this one is very much an idealized version of the South. The way that slavery is portrayed here is very questionable at best. It's definitely not an accurate portrayal. It's very much romanticizing the idea of pre-Civil War South. So I just want to put that out there if you decide to pick it up. Like, that's what's happening here. I would not say it's, like, great. I think this was written in, like, the 50s or 60s, looking back at the Civil War. So yeah, just have that in mind if you decide to pick this one up. It's an interesting book, but it is very much questionable. But that said, again, I just wanted to recommend this for these two characters because of that, like, differing philosophy and the ways that it makes these two men butt heads and the fallout of that kind of neither of them wins. They both have what I would call unhappy endings by the close of the book. And the point of the book is that there has to be a path forward somewhere in the middle, and that is the lesson that we get for this like young boy kind of leaving, where the two extremes have failed, he's got to pick up the pieces. So that's what I wanted to recommend this one for. Next up, we have Lily Schumacher. She is the social secretary, and she's this sort of bubbly, extroverted woman who comes across as like very polite and not mild-mannered exactly, but like polite and friendly and very fake. She's very, very fake, and it's pretty clear that she's doing a lot of stuff that she just does because it benefits her specifically, and so I wanted to recommend Yellowface, because she's an obnoxious white woman who is just kind of trampling other people to do what she wants because it benefits her specifically, and she will come up with any justification to make it, like, right to herself what she's doing. So I think she needs to read Yellowface, because I think that that's very much what we have June Hayward in here doing in her decision to kind of steal her friend's manuscript and publish it under a name that makes her sound like she might be Asian, but she's white. I think that Lily needs to read this one and kind of take in some of the criticisms that this levels at white privilege specifically. Finally, we have Sheila Cannon. She's a really fun character. She's another one of the butlers, and she is messy. She loves to drink and smoke. She's constantly like getting drunk and gossiping with people. She has these like loud, flamboyant arguments with people, and I think she would like Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. This is a book I really didn't care for. In fact, I DNF'd it a little bit over 100 pages in, but I think that Sheila would just love the gossip here. This feels very gossipy. It feels very like looking at the impacts on one person. It suggests that it's about Facebook as a whole, but really we see Sarah Wynne Williams kind of focusing on the impacts to herself of the things that she was doing. And so I think that Sheila would just like eat this up. She would have so much fun reading the gossipy, mean stories in here. So the reasons that I hated it would be the reasons that I think Sheila would have just a wonderful time reading this. So those are all of my recommendations for characters from The Residence. That was a whole bunch of characters, and there are quite a few that I've left out. I did so kind of strategically because there's some characters that don't really come to the forefront until later in the series, and I didn't want to spoil any of that. I didn't want, for anyone who wants to watch the show, I didn't want you to learn about a character here and then be like, why isn't this person showing up yet when you actually watch the show? So that's why there's been some strategic selection of characters. But this was really fun. I had a lot of fun picking books for all these different characters, and I would love if you let me know down in the comments below if you liked this format, if you'd like to see something similar for other TV shows. I don't watch a lot of TV, but there's a couple of shows I'd like to give a try. Currently eyeing Evil at the moment. I've seen some clips that make that look really entertaining. Let me know down in the comments below also if you read any of these and what you thought of them. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least once a week and hope to see you in the next video. Bye.